I think Nasrallah will be under pressure from the Lebanese government, from regional players, as to the risk he could take in declaring war. But certainly for the Lebanese population, they are worried. And as I say, they're holding their breath.
It's easy to see why Israel would target the man called Saleh al-Arouri. He was one of Hamas's leaders, blamed for organising the rapes and murders carried out on October the 7th. Al-Arouri and 6 of his henchmen were killed in an explosion in Beirut. But has the attack increased the chance that Israel could face a war on its northern border as well as in Gaza? Let's speak to Rosabel Crean, a journalist who covers Lebanon, knows the region very well. Morning to you, Rosabel.
Good morning.
How significant is this that this assassination took place in Lebanon?
It certainly has felt like an escalation in what had only been fighting between Hezbollah and Israel that had been contained to the southern areas of Lebanon and the border with Israel. So this was quickly labelled by media in Lebanon and much of the population as the first Israeli strike on Beirut since their war with Israel in 2006. So it does feel like a significant escalation, and much of the country is sort of holding their breath.
Is there a distinction to be drawn between a hit on Beirut and a targeted hit on Hamas representatives in Beirut? I mean, the information we've seen so far, this may not prove to be entirely accurate, but the current position seems to be this was a very clean surgical hit that only took out Hamas figures in the room. Does that make a difference, do you think?
Yeah, as far as we know, it was a drone hit that targeted the third floor of a building, apparently a Hamas office, where a meeting between Palestinian factions had been taking place. So there was clear intelligence breach as well, which is significant. I think Israel they've thought about this attack clearly and did make that distinction, as you say, to target Hamas commanders and affiliates. However, whether Lebanon and Hassan Nasrallah, who's the leader of Hezbollah, the powerful Shia Iran-backed political party in Lebanon, will make that distinction remains to be seen.
He's speaking, I think, at 6 o'clock Beirut time today. How far could this go? Because, I mean, there has been wars between Lebanon and Israel before, and there's constant fighting between Hezbollah and Israel in the form of rockets going into Israel. How far could this escalate? How worried would you be that this escalation could take place?
Look, I think traditionally Nasrallah's speech later today, which was scheduled actually prior to the attack to mark the 4th anniversary of the death of the powerful Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani, who was killed by an airstrike ordered by then US President Donald Trump. So that in itself adds some symbolism. He last spoke in November, and there was much anticipation then as to whether it would be a declaration of war. Clearly, the terms are different now. There's been a rise in attacks in the south. We know that quite a few, about 18 members of Hezbollah have been killed in the fighting. Obviously, the huge losses in Gaza, civilian losses, are all adding to an air of tension. I think Nasrallah will be under pressure from the Lebanese government, from regional players, as to the risk he could take in declaring war. But certainly for the Lebanese population, they are worried. And as I say, they're holding their breath.
Are they? They're not very belligerent. Then it's hard. I mean, obviously, it's impossible to characterise an entire population, but there's not as far as you read it, a rise in belligerence of the Lebanese population. They want to see further conflict with Israel.
I think it's interesting because there's a distinction. Although Lebanon is a small country, it's about half the size of Wales. The South, which knows all too well war with Israel from 2000. It was only in 2000 when Israel withdrew their forces from the south. And again in 2006, there was this war between Israel and Hezbollah. And so for the people of the south, they are supporters of Hezbollah. They see Hezbollah as a defense against Israel, which Hezbollah calls the Zionist enemy. And Hezbollah is known locally as the resistance. And so there's that distinction to make about the people of the south, and particularly in the southern suburbs where the strike took place. A lot of the families living there, it's a very residential area, I should add. A lot of the families who live there will be from villages in the south, so they know the shadow of war with Israel all too well. I don't think there is a strong feeling of war with Israel among the wider population. No, it's not in anyone's interest. Lebanon itself has been suffering from one of the worst economic crises of its sort of modern history. Its inflation is in three figures, and its army is notoriously weak and sort of being supported by its allies. And so the country itself is not in any position at all to go to war.
Interesting stuff. Rosabel, really good to speak to you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
That's Rosabel Crean, their journalist who covers Lebanon, giving us the context. And the speech is at 6 p.m. Beirut time today. Well worth keeping an eye on there. That's the Hezbollah leader, Hassan Nasrallah, quite a rare speech by the sounds of it. And he'll very much, our attention will be to how belligerent he sounds at that point.